Her face slammed into the dirt, laughter erupting around her as the sergeant's boot pressed harder between her shoulder blades. They called her weak, worthless, unfit to serve alongside real soldiers. The humiliation burned worse than the scrapes on her cheek. For weeks, she had endured their mockery, their cruelty, their absolute certainty that she would break. Then in one fluid motion, everything changed. The yard fell silent as the sergeant collapsed, gasping for air, suddenly at the mercy of the woman they had all underestimated. The morning sun beat down mercilessly on Fort Phoenix military base as 38 recruits stood at attention in the dusty yard. Day 31 of the Special Operations Selection Course had arrived, and the original 95 candidates had been whittled down through brutal physical and psychological trials. Aria Vale stood in the back row, her slight frame nearly hidden behind the broad shoulders of the men surrounding her. She maintained an intentionally unremarkable presence, her auburn hair pulled back in a regulation bun, her uniform slightly ill-fitting, her posture just a touch too rigid. Where the other recruits had developed a hardened camaraderie through shared suffering, Aria remained an outsider. Sergeant Marcus Kane paced before them, combat boots kicking up small clouds with each deliberate step. His face, weathered by multiple combat tours, settled into its natural expression of contempt as his gaze landed on Aria. "Attention!" he barked unnecessarily. The recruits were already ramrod straight, except for Aria, who struggled to maintain proper posture. The night navigation exercise had ended just 5 hours ago. While the other recruits had been given accurate coordinates, Aria's map had been intentionally marked wrong, sending her through treacherous terrain before she finally found her way back to base. Before we continue, please comment below where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe to the She Force Tales channel. From the corner of her eye, Aria noticed Colonel Diana Brooks watching from the sidelines, clipboard in hand. Her presence was unusual at this stage, but she kept her focus forward as Kane approached. "Recruit Vale," Kane's voice carried across the yard. "Step forward." Aria complied, moving with deliberate awkwardness. "Tell me, recruit." Kane circled her like a predator. "Why do you think you belong here?" "To serve my country, Sergeant," she replied, voice steady but quiet. Kane laughed, a sharp sound devoid of humor. "Your country? And you think the best way to serve is by slowing down an elite unit, by demanding special treatment?" "I haven't asked for special treatment, Sergeant. Your presence demands it," Kane shouted, his face inches from hers. "Every time we have to slow down for you to catch up. Every time we lower our standards to accommodate weakness." The other recruits remained silent, relief washing over their faces that someone else was the target. Only Aria's eyes gave away nothing, fixed forward, deliberately empty. "This isn't some equality experiment. People," Kane addressed the formation. "In combat, the enemy doesn't care about your feelings. They don't care about diversity quotas. They care about exploiting weakness." He jabbed a finger toward Aria. "And weakness gets good soldiers killed." Colonel Brooks made a note on her clipboard, her expression unreadable. As Kane continued his tirade, Aria's mind flashed briefly to another time. A younger version of herself watching silently from shadows as men in uniform spoke in hushed tones, a hand placing a medal in a wooden box, whispered conversations in languages few Americans could understand. She returned to the present as Kane announced the day's training. Close quarters combat. The perfect arena for public humiliation. The afternoon sun had reached its zenith when the recruits gathered in the combat training yard. They paired off naturally, their unofficial hierarchy long established. No one volunteered to partner with Aria. "Recruit Torres," Kane called. Miguel Torres, a former college wrestling champion with shoulders like boulders and a perpetual sneer, stepped forward. "You'll be demonstrating with Recruit Vale." The other pairs spread across the yard, leaving Aria and Miguel conspicuously isolated near Kane. "Today we're practicing takedowns and control holds," Kane announced. "Watch carefully." He demonstrated the technique on a willing recruit, explaining the proper form for safely taking down an opponent. Then he turned to Aria and Miguel. "Don't worry," Kane announced loudly. "Women get special treatment in my course." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Torres, you may use maximum force. Vale, your job is simple. Survive for 45 seconds. Colonel Brooks stepped closer, her interest evident. The first takedown was brutal. Miguel drove Aria into the ground with unnecessary force. She hit with a dull thud, air rushing from her lungs. Per training, she slapped the ground to disperse the impact, but it did little to soften the blow. Aria got to her feet without complaint, resuming her starting position. Miguel glanced at Kane, who nodded for him to continue. The second takedown was worse. Miguel swept her legs and drove her down with his full weight. Blood trickled from Aria's lip, but her eyes remained calm, calculating. Something about that gaze made Miguel hesitate momentarily. Problem, Recruit Torres? Kane barked. No, Sergeant, Miguel replied, resuming his position. Colonel Brooks's eyes narrowed as she caught a micro-expression on Aria's face, something that didn't match her submissive posture. It was gone in an instant, but it troubled her. Enough playing, Kane stepped into the circle. Let me demonstrate a proper takedown. The recruits gathered around, their training forgotten as they anticipated the spectacle. Aria stood calmly, waiting. Sometimes trash needs to know its place, Kane said loudly. He grabbed Aria roughly by the collar and shoulder, driving her face into the dirt with unnecessary force. The yard filled with uncomfortable laughter as he pressed his knee in her back, grinding her face deeper into the earth. This is what happens in the real world, Kane lectured. No second chances, no mercy. His words cut off abruptly as Aria's body changed beneath his grip. The shift was subtle at first, fingers twitching in a pattern that Colonel Brooks recognized with sudden alarm. Sergeant, Brooks shouted, stand down, but it was too late. With serpentine speed, Aria transformed beneath Kane's hold. Her movement was liquid precision as she twisted from beneath him, capturing his extended arm and using his momentum against him. Her technique revealed years of expert training as she executed a perfect counter. Within 3 seconds, she had Kane in a chokehold, her small frame now perfectly balanced and leveraged. The sergeant struggled, then gasped as Aria applied targeted pressure to his carotid artery. His face reddened, then paled as she cut off his blood flow with clinical precision. Dead silence engulfed the yard. The recruits stood frozen, processing what they had just witnessed. The woman they dismissed as weak was now controlling one of the most feared instructors on base with terrifying efficiency. Aria released Kane just before he lost consciousness, letting him collapse to his knees, gasping for air. Her eyes, no longer vacant, scanned the yard with predatory awareness. Colonel Brooks stepped forward, speaking clearly in a language that none of the recruits understood. Nightshade protocol verified. Status report. Aria responded with a perfect accent. Asset secure. Evaluation complete. Brooks immediately stood at attention and saluted her. The gesture sent shock waves through the assembled recruits. Attention. Brooks's voice cracked like thunder across the yard. You are in the presence of Major Aria Vale, Distinguished Service Cross recipient, former Ghost Program operative, and your new commanding officer. Kane, still struggling to breathe, looked up in shock as Brooks continued. Major Vale wasn't a recruit. She was evaluating this program and your treatment of candidates under extreme duress. Brooks turned to the stunned recruits. This was your real test, and most of you just failed. The transformation in Aria was complete. Her posture straightened, shoulders squaring with natural authority. The awkwardness that had defined her for weeks vanished, replaced by a commanding presence that seemed to physically enlarge her in the eyes of the recruits. For the past 31 days, Aria spoke for the first time in her natural voice, clear and authoritative. I have watched you, not just your physical performance or tactical decisions, but your character. How you treat others when you think no one who matters is watching. Her gaze swept across the formation, making deliberate eye contact with several recruits who had been particularly cruel. Some looked away. Others stared back, faces pale with realization. 4 of you, she continued, demonstrated the qualities we actually need in special operations. You helped others without seeking recognition. You resisted joining the mockery. You led through example rather than intimidation. She pointed to 4 recruits scattered throughout the formation. A quiet woman who had shared her water during a desert exercise, a serious-faced man who had defended a struggling teammate against ridicule, a young recruit who had consistently put team success above personal glory, and another who had shown moral courage when no one was watching. The rest of you, her voice hardened, confused cruelty for strength. You believed that stepping on others would elevate you. Miguel Torres shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet her eyes. Special operations isn't about being the toughest or most aggressive, Aria said. It's about judgment, restraint, knowing when to use force and when not to. It's about carrying power responsibly. Colonel Brooks directed the 4 selected recruits to step forward while instructing the others to return to barracks to await further orders. As the shocked recruits dispersed, Kane finally found his voice. "This is some kind of joke," he rasped, climbing unsteadily to his feet. "You can't just do this." "Sergeant Kane," Colonel Brooks interrupted. "Report to the general's office immediately." "This isn't over," Kane hissed at Aria as he passed. Her response was quiet, meant only for him. It was over the moment you confused sadism for leadership. That evening, Aria sat across from General Rebecca Stone in the command headquarters. Gone was any pretense of weakness. Aria's posture was perfect, her gaze steady and commanding as she delivered her assessment. "The program is broken," she stated flatly. "They're creating soldiers who mistake cruelty for strength and conformity for loyalty." General Stone nodded, silver hair catching the light. At 59, she carried her authority with effortless grace, the product of decades navigating a system that had tried at every turn to reject her. "That's why we needed someone they would underestimate," Stone replied. "Someone they would reveal their true nature to." Through the window, they watched as Kane was escorted to a vehicle, his career effectively finished. "Your evaluation confirms what we suspected," the general continued. "The course has been corrupted by the wrong values. We're not just looking for physical specimens who can endure hardship. We need thinking operators with moral courage." "And the candidates?" Aria asked. "Your recommendations?" "Foreshowed genuine character. They helped others without seeking recognition. They resisted joining the mockery. They led through example, not intimidation." Aria slid forward 4 files. "The rest aren't ready for the responsibility of Special Operations Command." General Stone studied the files. "So few. Quality over quantity," Aria replied. "Always." The general studied her for a moment. 31 days of abuse. Most people would have broken character, revealed themselves. "With respect, General, I've endured worse for longer. So I've read." Stone tapped a classified file on her desk. "And that's why you were perfect for this assignment. You understand what it means to be underestimated, to be seen as less than you are." Aria's gaze drifted to the window, to the training grounds beyond. It can be an advantage, being underestimated. People reveal who they truly are when they think you're beneath their notice. "And what did you see out there?" Stone asked. "A culture that rewards the wrong things. Strength without wisdom. Toughness without compassion. Power without responsibility." Aria met the general's eyes again. "We could do better." Stone nodded. "Then let's begin." Dawn broke over Fort Phoenix, painting the eastern sky in fiery oranges and golds. The training yard, usually filled with shouted orders and pounding feet, was quiet as the remaining recruits assembled. Major Aria Vale stood before them, transformed. Gone was the slouched posture and averted gaze. She wore her proper uniform now, combat decorations visible on her chest. She stood tall, commanding respect without demanding it. The recruits remained at attention, still processing the revelation from yesterday. Most had spent a sleepless night reviewing every interaction they'd had with a woman they dismissed as weak, every cruel word spoken when they thought it didn't matter. "At ease," Aria ordered. The recruits shifted to parade rest, eyes forward. "Yesterday was difficult for many of you," she began, "finding out that your behavior was being evaluated when you thought no one was watching." She paced slowly before them, her boots whispering against the packed earth. "But that's the reality of leadership. Your true character isn't revealed by how you act when everyone is watching. It's revealed by how you treat those you perceive as having no power over you." Aria stopped before the 4 recruits she had singled out yesterday. "Recruit Chun." She addressed the woman who had defended a teammate. "Why did you stand up for Recruit Williams when Sergeant Kane was berating him?" Chun swallowed hard. "Because it was wrong, ma'am. Williams was injured, not lazy. He needed medical attention, not humiliation." Aria nodded. "And did you know I was watching?" "No, ma'am." "Did you think there would be any benefit to you?" "No, ma'am. I thought I might get targeted next." "Yet you acted anyway." Aria noted. That's moral courage. She addressed the entire group again. Leadership isn't a privilege. It's a responsibility to those under your command. Your task isn't to break people. It's to build them up to be stronger than they believe possible. Aria knelt down and picked up a handful of dirt, letting it filter through her fingers. The ground doesn't care who you are or where you came from, she said. What matters is whether you have the strength to rise when they throw you down. She straightened up, brushing the dirt from her hands. 4 of you will continue to the Special Operations Qualification course. The rest are being reassigned. She scanned their faces, not as punishment, but as redirection. Some of you have potential, but need to re-examine your understanding of strength and leadership. After dismissing most of the recruits, Aria approached the 4 who remained. The Real training begins now, she told them. And it starts with understanding that the strongest teams are built on trust, not fear. The weeks that followed would reshape not just these 4 recruits, but the entire approach to special operations training. Aria Vale had proven that true strength wasn't about dominating others. It was about rising from the dirt with your humanity intact, ready to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. In her father's memory, and for the future of special operations, she would continue the fight to ensure that power was wielded with wisdom, strength with compassion, and authority with responsibility. The transformation of Fort Phoenix was just the beginning.